Go for it, dear.
Thanks. Hey, this is Doug again. The topic I want to discuss today is the first thing is I want to say is I didn't get my a new microphone or whatever for the computer yet, is because I'm trying to figure it out what kind to get. Today's topic is what kind of police presence in a SHTF scenario. We've all seen what happened with Hurricane Katrina, where people, 60 police officers were fired because they left their jobs and they abandoned the city. Would there be the situation I want to say is from day one to about 4 weeks. We know anything after 4 weeks, 6 months with no law and order, it'd be probably Mad Max or something like that. There'd be major problems in cities like New York City. Look at Oakland. The parameters I want to keep is, whether it's an EMP or a stock market crash. Nuclear war, of course, there won't be much of society left except for a three-legged dog or something like that. But are we going to see police still going to work? I think the first, let's say, 4 or 5 days is possible. I think there would be a lot of problems the first day. The first thing is there'd be probably more accidents because there's people are going to be hurrying up to get to the gas station, get some gas. There's going to be problems at the stores. We all seen what Black Fridays look like at Walmart and Target. I think there's going to be a lot of problems like that. I think hospitals will be overwhelmed is because there might be more violence. And I think that's pretty much across the board. Are police officers still going to go to work, or are they going to stay home? I think in the beginning they'll be at work. The big problems is like Oakland, New York City, Philadelphia, Chicago, New Jersey, or whatever. I think there's going to be tons of problems like that, where you're going to see a lot of people taking the streets in big cities. But I also think that there's a lot of good officers that still go to work. So I'm not picking on any particular precinct or police department or anything like that in the United States. Where I live in Wisconsin, there's 45,000 people. And I like to think, I think we're probably more insulated in the smaller communities than we would, let's say, in Milwaukee, which is only an hour south of where I live. The reason is smaller communities, people generally know each other, and but are police going to go to work? Are they still going to go out there? I'm thinking after 4 or 5 days, there's a lot of police officers in big cities that won't go to work. What stimulated my thinking here is a few weeks back, I was at McDonald's ordering some food, and I talked to the sergeant first class from the Army National Guards, and he was with a young recruit. She didn't leave for the Army yet, but she is, I guess, this summer or whatever. This is, I'm going to say, about 3-4 weeks ago, maybe. She's about 18 years old. She weighs about 95 pounds or something like that. And I couldn't imagine her carrying out plans, martial law or anything to do, with posse comitatus and that kind of stuff. I couldn't imagine the police and stuff really turning on everybody. You got to remember, a place like Oakland and Wall Street, you really got to give the police a lot of credit. Credit is because a lot of, and there's one thing about protesting, which is okay. You got Bill of Rights, or freedom of speech and stuff like that. But there's always anarchists and problems that come along with that. And when there's problems that come along with that itself, they're the ones that are going to get in the police officer's face, screaming and yelling. After 4 or 5 hours, the heat, the temperature is going to get to everybody. There's no police out. There's a lot of police officers who wish they didn't have to be out there in these protesting. They'd just rather be giving somebody parking tickets or getting a donut or whatever. They don't want to give people hard times. Are there bad police? Of course. I'm not going to name anybody in particular or anything like that. You're always going to have some people are going to police that just love the action, and But what do we think the police officers are going to do? 4 or 5 days, stop going to work, or are we going to live in a world without rules of law, or are we going to form our own law enforcement with our SHTF, our community, we're going to. And that's what gets me thinking. Are people going to go to work, not go to work? After 4 or 5 days, are police going to say, "Gee, I'm just not going to go to work today. I can't. I have to stay home with my children or whatever." These big cities, it'd be really. We've seen what happened on Black Fridays and a few years back when New York City had a blackout. Crime rate, is going to spiral out of control in a lot of situations. But I also, I want to hear some input, video responses, or other comments. I have hope. I like to think, there's a greater good. I think there's, like where I live, I think more importantly, it's about being respectful to law enforcement and other people in the community. I think if somebody was a bad person yesterday, they're a bad person today, they're probably going to be a bad person tomorrow. And there's a lot of people that think that in a SHTF scenario that they're going to be the lords of Walmart, or they can just do anything they want. Southern Prepper One, he said it best. There's too many people that think they got 15 firearms and they had no food storage. Gee, I'll just take what I want from other people. I think there'd be a lot. There'd be looting, and there's a lot of other problems like that happen. But I want to hear everybody else's comment, so if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I'm going to try to keep it interesting, and I'm going to do a little bit of different things like this. Go to my earlier videos when it talks the event, part 1, event part 2. I pretty much accurately, describe. There's a lot of people, 4 or 5 days. The big thing is, almost, jumping out a little bit. Remember after 4 or 5 days when people don't have medications, whether it's lithium, antidepressants, or Prozac, Seroquel, they don't have medications, the crime rates are going to be up massively. People are, go crazy. And if we see a stock market crash when people all of a sudden lose their jobs, they don't have money to pay their rent, food, mortgage, internet, cell phone, stuff like that. There's, them people are also joined, whether it's the protesters or anarchists out there too. So they'll join these groups, and the police will get overwhelmed in a lot of major cities. So if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. God bless. Take care.